Okay, recording has started.
Oh, good morning, everyone, and happy St. Patty's Day to you all. I was going to post a nice Irish name chart today, but there's so many different ones, and some of them were less than G rated, and so I decided, well, you know, we'll just hold off on that. So I hope everyone can now see the Sage Council meeting agenda. Any input on that? Can we see that or not?
I can see it, Mark. We've had another caller on the line, so can I get a name for caller number 3 that just joined us?
Caller number 3 remains silent. We would like to be able to know who you are so we can see if you have added to our quorum or not. If your caller, if you just dialed in, please speak up and give us a name.
And also, if you feel more comfortable doing that, you can add your name in chat as well. So we won't hold up the meeting. Eventually, we'll find out who that is. But okay.
Okay. All right. So my first question will be, other than I hope everyone has a visual so they can see my lovely rainbow, because we need some rainbows in this time of doom and gloom. I was thinking, you know, and was watching something about the Waltons. I remember one of the things from the TV show The Waltons that one of the boys played the harmonica and he always played Sky Better. There's some song he used to play all the time, and of course it was the middle of the Depression and it was a happy song and some people just didn't feel like it. But we need to find our happy things as well during all this doom and gloom that we have with the coronavirus, and we'll talk more about that as we move through the agenda today, because I think there's some things we need to discuss at some length. So do I have any other items for the agenda at this time? Hearing none at this time, we'll assume that the agenda that we have will be adequate for our needs, and we'll begin with the approval of the minutes for November 2019 and January 2020. Do I have a motion of the nature?
I just wanted to ask, this is Dia, if we were going to have anything saying that the meeting was adjourned or anything for January. It just kind of drops. I think that was the end of things, but.
Okay, I can add that for sure, Dia. Not a problem.
Okay. Okay.
It's a good point. That way you know you're not missing anything.
Yeah, because I got to the bottom and I kind of went, I went back to my notes. I went, I think this was the last item, but.
Okay, thank you, Dia. Anybody have a motion for me for the?
Well, I would move that we accept both the November 2019 and January 2020 minutes as amended with the thing for 2020, the January ones.
Right. There's a second in chat from Delia.
Okay, let's take a vote then. As all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay, we'll make the assumption that the voting was unanimous in favor. Okay, committee reports. Who do we have from the cataloging committee that can report to us at this time?
I will be reporting on behalf of the cataloging committee. John Brockman, the chair of the cataloging committee, sent me a summary. The cataloging committee met on February 3rd to discuss its goals for the year, in addition to smaller matters of cataloging minutia and general reminders. The two primary goals for the year are clarifying qualifications and permissions for the different cataloging levels, as well as procedures for advancement and regression. And number two, changing our cataloging content standard from AACR2/RDA to only RDA. The proposal for defining cataloging levels has been approved and a subcommittee has been formed. The training portion covered proper protocols for entering and sourcing summaries in the MARC record. Most of the reminders were in regard to new features and terminology within the web client after the January upgrade. As always, time was allotted for general cataloging questions, of which there were none. And that's the end.
Thank you for that report. Do we have a report now from the Circulation Committee?
I guess I will step in on that as well. Unless Kathy is on the phone. She, as chair of the Circulation Committee, she had volunteered to do a summary. Basically, we are finalizing changes to our proposal for the default SAGE policies, loan rules, and pulling together a document that is more succinct and less scattered than it is currently. So, yeah, that's basically it. The Circulation Committee is meeting once a month to address these documents. And their next meeting is mid-April.
Okay. Is there anything else on the Circulation Committee? All right, thank you for the report. The next item we have on the agenda has to do with the impact on SAGE of the SAGE closures due to the coronavirus. We've had just received a report this morning. I think Lily's online here that Milton Freewater will be closing tomorrow, I believe. And there are other libraries in Umatilla County that have closed. And I know we have reports from, I believe, Lake County and other locations that have also closed. I know Hood River apparently is also closed. So I guess I'm wondering if we need to have some level of discussion on what needs to happen as that happens so that we can properly engage with the system and not create problems for each other.
I can address that if you want me to, Mark.
That would be fine. Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome. I sent out an email shortly before the meeting time about a new feature in Evergreen that is available to us since the upgrade called the Emergency Closing Handler. This emergency closing handler allows us to either specify a single date or a range of dates that we are closing due to an emergency, which is perfect in this situation. And what that does is it automatically extends due dates as well as patron expiration dates. During the closure, it automatically waives fines during that closure and extends the hold shelf expiration dates. Trying to think what else was included in the email. But anyway, this is going to do a lot of things for us automatically that John and I won't have to go in and create reports and extend due dates for folks, which we did for some libraries already. But if libraries give us their start and end closing dates, we can enable this closing feature and mitigate a lot of the problems that would be caused. As far as the courier, for those folks who are on the Orbis Cascade Courier, and you're still open, but a library you're sending to is closed, the courier service will go ahead and hold those items for that closed library and deliver them when the library reopens. So this is an additional courier service that we can take advantage of that will kind of mitigate some of the backlog of materials stacked up at your library that you can't send out, even though you are still open. You can go ahead and send those materials out, especially if you're on the Orbis Cascade Courier. So as courier issues come up, we'll address those via the listserv and try to stay in communication about the proper procedures to employ depending on what part of the courier system you are on. So I think the main thing is just keeping the communication flowing as far as letting us know if you have decided to close or have limited services. I'm going to be putting together a spreadsheet of all the SAGE libraries that kind of communicates what each library has communicated with me that they are doing, and we'll have it up available on the website. The other thing I wanted to talk to the council about was there's a couple things. Whether we want to post a message up on the OPAC and what that message would indicate. Because obviously as libraries close, it's going to impact our patrons as far as holds fulfillment. So they may have to wait longer for a hold they have placed. Even if their library is open, there may not be the availability to send that item to the patron. So I feel like we need to communicate that to the patrons somehow. And so I didn't know whether putting an OPAC message is the appropriate place to do that. So I'd like some feedback on that. The other feedback that I want to get is I've talked with a couple libraries about changing the text of the notifications that go out. Say they got a notification that their hold was ready for pickup, but their library is closed. I think there needs to be some language in the text notification that they need to check with their home library, or that their home library may be closed and they may have to wait till that library reopens to pick up their hold that has arrived. Some of that will be mitigated by the fact that the library will be closed and they won't be checking in items. And so those items won't be put on the hold shelf. They'll be just still in transit. But in this interim period where some things are still being checked in, but then the library closes and there's no time for the patron to come and get it, there may be a need for the text notice, or sorry, the text and the email notices to change.
Beth, I'd like to ask a question in a slightly different direction. I noticed there's been a conversation on the side over there about drive-by librarianship, the basically the restaurant model of grab and go, of curbside service. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. The closures, the emergency closures, wouldn't apply to the libraries that are looking at doing this curbside service, would it?
It actually would, because we still want it to apply the longer due dates, the patron expiration dates not coming up while the closure's happening. I believe that the holds process will still work, even if you employ the emergency closing procedure. I think the only thing that the emergency closing does is it extends the shelf expiration time, which means your hold can stay on the hold shelf longer without expiring. So I believe that we could still do the curbside service and employ the emergency closing handler
Okay.
as well.
Appreciate that information.
Work like they are. I saw Hood River's announcement. Didn't it say that they will be canceling all holds from their library? And so maybe that might,
I
as the
believe
message you were saying.
Oh, wait, I'll speak for Hood River. This is Rachel.
Thank
We're
you.
not
Thank you,
canceling
Rachel.
holds. We're just keeping them on the hold shelf.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood that. But I think some libraries aren't going to have anybody physically in the library to do a pull a hold. So maybe if our message said something like, during this time, hold. Yeah, I really think that needs to be on the OPAC, is my opinion.
Yeah, we're suspending polling holds. That's what we're doing.
Yes, that was what I meant.
Yep.
And I think if we word or phrase the wording in such a way that it's fairly open-ended, but giving people an idea that this is going on, it would probably be real helpful.
My thought was that I would put together a draft message and send it out for consideration to the listserv to get some, maybe fine tuning and suggestions, either for things that I haven't covered in the general message or maybe a change in phrasing. Because I want this to be what all of you want for your patrons on the OPAC. So if you're okay with, let's put an OPAC message up, I'll send something out for us to review.
Does anybody
it's
object
important.
to that? Does anybody object? Let's put it that way. I think we all feel like it could be a very good thing. So does anyone object to that? Hearing no objections, I would recommend that create a possible message and we'll give you feedback.
Okay, perfect. I will do the same thing for one of the things with the notices, hold notices, overdue notices. For the most part, they are SAGE-wide. And so I want to get some language in there that's not too specific, but opens the patron to the possibility that, oh, my hold's here, but I may or may not be able to receive it within the text of the notice, so that they gear it to their specific home library situation. And so I'll probably send out a draft for that as well, so I can get some feedback, if there's no objections.
Go forth and do good.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing that we can do is, if your library is closed and there is no staff there pulling holds, there's a library setting that we can turn on for your library, and we often do this for schools in the summer. And basically, the feature is called Skip for Hold Targeting, and so when the system targets for holds, if we know a library is closed, we enable this setting, and then they will be bypassed during the time period that the library is closed and they can't fill holds. So obviously, we're not going to turn this setting on for libraries who still want to fulfill holds, but for those libraries that are closed and have no staff looking at those holds, we will enable that setting for their library, so that it doesn't go to somebody's pull list for 3 days and sit there when they're closed, that kind of thing. So that's another setting in the system that can help us with this particular situation. Okay, anything else that folks have questions about and concerns with the coronavirus closures?
Are we ready to move on then to potential use of automatic renewal?
Perry had a question in the chat box
Okay.
asking if we can discuss sanitization of items being sent in ILL.
What do libraries
okay.
typically do? Any sanitization protocols?
Up till this point, we've never done anything other than package the book.
So the
We've been
sanitization,
wiping ours down with Clorox wipes.
yeah, this is Kathy, and we've been wiping ours with Clorox wipes when they come back. But what we're gonna implement starting today is putting them in a stack for 2 weeks. This is what was recommended by another library. Let them sit for 2 weeks, then check them in, then wipe them down. It seems like a little too much, but that's what we're gonna do. For the books that come from us, we'll have gone through that process already. So that's what we're gonna try.
I have a question on that, Beth, that may make some things easier or better, and it may not. When I asked Heidi on our staff about checking in the items, because we're looking at the similar kind of thing, Kathy, of letting the books sit for 10 days or 2 weeks, whatever. But is there a way we can return them at the time, and then that places it in some kind of a bucket that we can then, after the 2 weeks to 10 days, can flip that, and then all those things are returned and they're basically back to a shelf status? Or is there some other process, or what should we be looking at, Beth? What is your recommendation if we're going to do that?
I'm trying to figure out how this impacts. I think
What kind of holding area would you have for like all of those?
My program room. My program room.
Okay.
That's what other
I'm not
libraries
doing
are
any.
saying. We're going to use our public tables that are here because nobody's here using them. And we have a very small, we don't have a program room in Boardman and Hepner.
Because you're going to be closed, so they'll.
We're closed. We're closed, so the numbers are going to go smaller.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
But that is what somebody told me, their program room. Then if we did open and you still had some, the program room could still be closed and people wouldn't have access to them.
Okay, I'm concerned about patron anxiety. If we do not check those items in, they will still be on the patron's record. If they are savvy and looking at their record online, they will be wondering why, when I return my items, are they still not checked in? I could see putting them in a holding area, but why not check them in and put them in the holding area?
That's
Well,
what I'd like to have.
My thought was if we check them in and they're in the holding area for 2 weeks, and we are offering the curbside deal, which I don't know if that's going to work, but then they would be holdable and the patron would put a hold, but we wouldn't pull it out of that stack for 2 weeks.
Okay.
They need to be in a limbo stack.
You could change the
I was
status.
going to say, is there a status? Yeah.
Yeah. What you could do is, as you're checking them in, you could select the whole list and change their status. I think we'd have to talk about what that good status would be after the meeting. But I think there's some procedures that we can enact that basically would say, okay, this item's checked in, but it's now in this other status, which means, there's things like
it's in repair.
Like in repair, or it's on a certain shelf.
Not available.
Not available. Those kind of things. And then we could change those status in batch later. Or just checking them in could potentially change them back to available.
Okay.
So let's work on some procedures, and then, but also address the patron's needs by them feeling like, okay, my item's been checked in. I've done what I needed to do to close this transaction.
I understand that. Yeah, but so that's a good idea, and I'll see what, after the meeting, I can email you and you can recommend what we put them in.
Yeah, that would be fine.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Anything else on the coronavirus? Perry, did you get all your questions asked about that? Because I know you were kind of heading in a different direction.
No, that's fine. I know that my circulation supervisor is kind of concerned about what products we wipe items down, which is fine for our items, but you know, I don't want to be wiping down interlibrary loan items with something that other libraries may not want us to cause any damage. So I just wanted to see if there's any concern about damage to interlibrary loan materials due to sanitization practices, but that's a really minor concern, I would think.
Well, I was wondering about that too. Can you make a solution to use with paper towels to replace Clorox wipes since we can't find any?
Well, one of the things that we've seen, and this comes back to that, what's the best practice? And I don't know that it's easy to come up with a best practice in this situation. What I've seen is that one, a wipe is less productive in killing germs than spraying it and letting it dry off on its own. In other words, giving the Clorox time to do its work. So we've toyed with that, but that's when we really kind of came back with the, no, we're going to sit on the books for 10 days to 2 weeks and call that good, because that's a more guaranteed kill and reduces contact with the potential hazard. The challenge really is what do we do with materials leaving our location or coming to our location, and what assumptions can we make of those materials? And you know, that's where we're all kind of at a conundrum. I don't know what the answer is on that.
Well, and the supplies of Clorox wipes or any cleaning supplies is dwindling.
Yeah, I did manage to get from Quill two 6-packs of Clorox wipes, and they arrived just either end of last week or early this week. So nice. I think some things are out there, but like Purell, they put me on hold for mid-April.
We got a whole case of toilet paper last week, so I could send it in the courier if anybody needs a roll.
I got toilet paper as well, no problem, last week. But the wipes is what did surprise me a little bit.
This is Deneen in Enterprise, and my patrons are, a lot of them are not going to ask for any interlibrary loan. They want to know, can I guarantee where they come from, that sort of thing, and I can't. And so if they have concerns about something coming in from outside of here, then I'm just suggesting they wait.
I wish I had a good answer for you, or a better answer than wait, but it may be the best answer.
I'm going to post a link to a vendor that provides some UV sterilizers that we are getting for Baker. There are handheld ones, there are mountable ones. So I think we're having our mountable one at the front desk installed today. So it takes 10 seconds to blast an item and sterilize it. On one side, we'll flip it, do another 10 seconds. So that'll be our method instead of the 2-week embargo.
What's the price tag on that unit?
The price per unit, it ranges from a small handheld one at about $100 to $500 for the larger 55-watt ones.
More discussion?
I was wondering, Perry, if you had already sent that link out to the Sage Lib listserv.
No, I have not.
I'm just thinking of
I see it in the chat.
yeah, I'm thinking of the folks that aren't at the council meeting. I can go ahead and put it in the minutes, but it'd be more timely if we sent something out to the listserv.
Yeah, I can do that. Not this week though, because we're still grappling with our closing procedures or
Yeah.
limiting services.
No problem.
If I send it out, I'd want to do it with enough warning that people take the possible hazard of this technology seriously. You have to have proper protective gear.
Right.
That's
Protect
true.
your eyes, protect your skin. So I'll think about doing that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Perry.
All right, not hearing anything new. Do we need to go over potential use of automatic renewal as a new feature? I sent out a wonderful email, Beth. Are there further questions or comments that we need to make about that? Hearing none. Are we ready to move on to the Evergreen app then? Beth, can you give us an explanation of what the need for the additional funds is for the implementation?
Sure. So the Evergreen app is functioning well on both the Android and the iOS. But one of the features that we use quite a bit in our Evergreen system, parts holds, was not programmed into the app. So for things like DVD sets or audiobook sets, things that are in parts and handled differently by different libraries, the ability to place holds for those items is not possible within the app currently. In discussion, there's several folks that feel that this is a really important feature within our Evergreen system and resource sharing. And I contacted the programmer. He did not use all of the funds that we had originally allocated. I think we still have a couple $100. I'd have to look at the invoice that he sent us, the last invoice. He gave me an estimate that it would take between $750 and $1,200 additional to program this feature for both the Android app and the iOS app. And we do have money that in the Sage budget that we could allocate to this, but I wanted to make sure that the council was okay with us going forward and spending additional monies for the app.
Any discussion?
This is Kathy. I am strongly in favor of that. We were one of the ones that brought it up because if you tried to order DVDs, like she said, was where we noticed it being the biggest issue. And we don't want people to try to use the app, which I've been using and it's amazing. And then be like, well, I wasn't able to do that, so I'm not going to ever try it again. That sort of reaction.
Okay. All right.
Did you say how much it was estimated to do that? Just a few more $100?
It was between $750 and $1,200. And it actually will be a little less than that since we had some residual funds from the original allocation. So he's already figured out how to do it. So I'm expecting that we'll be at the lower end of that estimate.
Do I hear a motion?
This is Perry. I would like to move that we expend the funds to develop the app to correct the bug on parts.
This is Kathy, and I second that motion.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none at this time, we'll take a vote. Those in favor? Aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? The voting is unanimous. That's approved. Thank you, Beth, for taking that on and moving that forward for us. Thank you. All right. At this time, we're going to go into the budget. And so I'm going to ask Beth to go ahead and change the presenter over to Perry, who will walk us through the budget for the fiscal year and then the member price structuring after that. Thank you.
Okay, Perry, I've made you presenter.
Okay, thanks. All right. So you should be seeing a spreadsheet with some colored columns, past years, gold columns of this current year, approved budget, and a little bit lighter gold with the actual data actual figures as of the 6th of March, and then the green column with the draft budget. Since I gave the sketch, there's been just a couple of minor changes. The sketch was given at the January meeting. Cash on hand is projected to be at $205,000. Membership dues expect to collect $223. Beth made a increase to the courier grant request to just around $61,000. We get some reimbursements from member libraries for CAT Express usage, and a new one there is projected for use of Easy Proxy. I didn't make any change to the projection of salary. That assumes a 3% cost of living increase, and last time I looked at the consumer price index, it was around 3% for this last fiscal year, which probably won't be next year, but we always base the salary on the previous year consumer price index for the Western region. So total salaries, that's Beth's salary, $62,000, and administrative services of our chief financial officer, 5 hours a week for that, $61.80, total $68,907. Benefits, even though Beth will be stepping into retirement this year, new rules from the state require agencies to continue paying into PERS for those employees that are rehired as retirees. Total benefits, we've had some discussion about health insurance, whether Beth stays on our insurance or not. If she opts to not stay on the district's health insurance, I would propose we roll that into the salary line. That should be a discussion item for the council, and we probably should have that now.
The reason.
Perry,
Okay, I just was saying the reasoning behind keeping that allocated was for when I am replaced, and having those funds continue to be in the budget. Correct, Perry?
Correct. Yeah. Any comments?
I think that's a good idea to leave it in there because otherwise we're going to appropriate that money eventually for other things and then we wouldn't be able to find it again for insurance for an employee.
I agree.
Can we also agree that our compensation level for our IT administrator is probably lower than it should be?
This was Marcia.
Yes.
So it would be reasonable to roll that health insurance into salary.
You know, that's my only concern is does that become salary and then we still don't have money for insurance?
So the assumption would be that Beth would be off the district insurance and on her own plan.
I understand that. My concern though is if we zero out the insurance and the money goes up into the salary, does that then become, is that almost the same as moving it elsewhere in the budget? Do we then not, do we then pay the new person that additional amount and then we don't have money for their insurance benefits?
But are you talking, Perry, of leaving it in the budget as it is and reallocating that just for the current situation so that we have the placeholders and all of that?
That's a good description, Dia, yes.
Okay.
You
It
can
doesn't
just,
matter really whether it's in the salary line or the benefits line, Mark.
there are lots of jobs that issue you checks in place of providing you insurance if you want to do that, and we can just call it that instead of calling it part of her salary if she doesn't want to be on Baker's insurance.
I'd have to check on the status of the regulation now with the Affordable Health Care Act. They ended that provision of paying a dividend basically in lieu of health insurance.
Is there still an option of doing a VEBA payment that the employee then uses for health care or saves it until retirement?
I don't know
And
if that is.
Yeah, we had that at our school district. I know lots of places offer that still.
Well, I guess what I would want to ensure is that we can't foresee what the requirements will be legally at the time we hire a new person. That could be a year from now, it could be 3 or 4 years from now, depending on what Beth decides she wants to do. I think we need to make sure that we keep monies available for the different purposes that we know are needed and just know where they are and then where they're going.
I think this would be a temporary move of benefit dollars to the salary line, and would change on a year-by-year basis, depending on what that new fiscal year's purpose was. So I guess I'm thinking this situation is in flux, and it could always be reallocated back into the benefits line when that time came.
Oh yeah, I imagine if we were to hire somebody new, we'd look at how much money we have in the personnel line to offer and calculate what the benefits would be and then what the salary would be, just the same as we do now. So we have the total figure we can afford, and then we break out the benefits and salaries.
And depending on that new
makes sense.
and depending on that new person's position, whether they're a new PERS person, the amount that will need to be allocated for PERS will change drastically as well. So that will give more monies to allocate towards salary and or benefits. So like Perry said, the overall picture would allow different allocations.
Although I don't know that there's going to be any savings with PERS. And it's also the rate's very market dependent, and with the market tanking, I don't think we're going to see any reduction in rates in the near future, or really even stability in rates. Okay, so we'll leave that in there for now in the health line. You can see we've bumped up telecommunications to 400 based on expenditure of 350 this current year. Technology, we spent 5,000. That's usually development and what else do I have? Equinox support.
Yeah, we had a need for more hours this year for Equinox because of the upgrade. So we went a little over.
Past histories, we have 2 years at 3,200 and one at 8,200, so that can change as needed, but 4,500 is a good estimate for a standard year. The fiscal agency fee, that's based on 2%. We take 2% of the total SAGE budget as the fiscal agency fee. Out of that, we take the accounting line of 6,180, and what's left over we call the administrative oversight services fee. So the 2,157 and the 6,180 make up the 2% of the SAGE budget. And that calculates out to about 1 hour a week of my time. I'd say that's probably doesn't cover it all, but that's fine. I'm happy with that amount, especially this year with all the work on the revision proposal. System support 65. This is John George's salary line or contract line 65,570. That's a 3% increase as well. Cost of living increase. Authority control 2,500. Dues and subscriptions. We picked up some subscriptions. Some of that's recovered up in the revenue line, as I mentioned, but that's jumping up to 5,000. Other items of note, travel, 3,500. You can see the history, and that should be enough to cover attendance to OLA, and then we also have training and professional development. That's mostly for Evergreen Conference, or I think 2 staff, Beth and John.
Yeah, potentially if John would like to go. Just an
Do you know where it's going to be?
Next year, I do not. The Evergreen Conference for this year was just canceled. So we won't be spending that money this year, and what money we did spend will be refunded.
Okay. So Courier, this is the grant amount requested, $16,950, and the SAGE funded $35,000. Total Courier cost of $95,950. I am somewhat concerned about the proportion of what SAGE contributes compared to previous years. If we look back at 2014-15, it's about a 50-50. We've gotten pretty far away from that. I don't know if that is a concern for LSTA or not, but I just wanted to point out that that disparity is growing.
When I do the reporting, Perry, I also add in the amount that the Umatilla County Special Library District pays for their portion of like the third day courier, as well as all of the in-kind costs that SAGE incurs through staff time for processing the ILLs. So between the two of those, it doesn't look bad. And that's how I feel that we've been able to justify this level.
So we weren't doing that back in 2014, 15.
Correct, yes.
Okay. So total materials and services, 182,801. Adding the personnel line and the materials and services, our operating budget is 284,940. So we do have some reserves. We customarily keep 25,000 for an emergency server replacement. Our contingency is currently at 37,525 this year. There will be, let's see, $7,000, I believe, paid as a staff severance package on retirement. That's half of unused sick leave and unused vacation pay. So that is currently estimated at $7,000, which should reduce our reserves down to just above 30,000. We have some savings, as Beth mentioned, from the training professional development. So that will grow maybe even higher than about the 31,000. That is unallocated money. And then the operations reserve, unappropriated ending fund balance, is 150,000. That's what is recommended for 6 months of operating costs. SAGE running from July to December. This current fiscal year came to 143,620. So 150 is what I budgeted to have on hand. On this lower down, it's just a little bit different way of looking at the reserves. Same information. Total operating budget less grants is 221,990. That is what we base the amount we need to collect from members on. And when I go to the discussion of member fees, you'll see that that's based on, I think, 223,000, which means a 2.5% increase in member fees if we stick with the current structure. Any questions?
Hearing no questions, I have a motion to approve the budget.
This is Kathy. I so move.
This is Deneen. I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the budget? Hearing no discussion, let's take a vote.
Aye.
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 Are there any opposed?
Not opposed, but I will abstain since I created the budget.
As I as I hear it and understand it, we have a unanimous vote other than the one abstention by Perry. So the motion is approved. Perry, the last item then is yours as well.
All right. Let me go to the results of the survey. We had 22 responses out of 54 members. That's about a 41% participation rate, which is not what I wanted to see, but it's better than average participation in U.S. elections.
Okay, just set them on the counter. Thank you.
We had 13, and then this one's also counted in as a change. 14 people, 14 respondents in favor of changing to a usage-based formula. 8% or 8 members voting for no change to keep the current structure with a 2.5% rate increase. So about 64% versus 36. If we change the preferred basis for the weighting on population, we have, again, 14 people in favor of the service population and 7 people in favor of active accounts. And if we change to the formula, the preferred rate for interlibrary loan, credit or fee, we have 12 members or 54 or 55% in favor of the 50 cents, 2 for 25 cents, 1 for $1, and 7 for no fee credit applied. Pull up the pricing structure. I went over this presentation in the January meeting, and we had 2 listening sections this last week, but nobody attended those. I had some questions by email I replied directly to. So I'm not sure if Mark, you want me to go over another presentation of this whole thing, or if we want to consider it understood.
Well, having been on the committee, I feel like I understand it, but I'm not sure what the consensus of those listening, whether they feel like they need additional understanding of the plan, of the proposals, or not. We've gone through a number of iterations, I know.
This is Dia. Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Mm-hmm.
So if we make a change, what happens is we vote on it at the Sage User Council, but then it has to go to the membership for a vote as well. Is that correct? Or not?
I don't think there's a hard rule. I think that's up to what the council wants to do. I think it would be a good practice.
Because I thought that was kind of my understanding with the way this was all set up. And so I just want to clarify if that is the case, because that's actually what I informed someone yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what my understanding was. So I just want to make sure that I was clear and that I'm clear as we move forward and we all are on the same page.
So with just a really 40% participation in the survey and 14 members out of 54 voting for change, I think there's the potential for that to be seen as not really a broad consensus for change. I really would like to see a broad consensus if we are to make this drastic change. So I would recommend that the user council put it back out to the general membership. Say we've decided between this option, the standard, no change, or this option, vote. And if we don't go with the change this year, it is a rough year to implement this kind of drastic change. So the timing may not be right. We may want to come back and look at this next year. Somebody else may have a different idea by then and want to take this over. I am not beholden to the structure at all, but have just done the work to provide some options to solve some issues that Sage identified. So totally willing to turn this over or to see no change. For Baker, any of the proposed new rates would be a $4,000 or $5,000 increase. So no change is fine with us.
Comments from others?
This is Deneen in Enterprise, and I've worked very hard on this committee too, and I understand all the reasons for the change, but the Joseph Librarian is quite certain, as is Wallowa, that their cities will not absorb that cost. Things are not looking good in Enterprise either. I've been meeting with my committee for the budget, and it looks like we're going to have trouble even holding where we are. So right now, I mean, I understand the fairness of it and the reasonableness of it, but I'm pretty certain that all of Wallowa County would be forced to find some other way to circulate. And I'm really sorry to have to say that. I really thought that, I mean, to me, it's reasonable and you can explain it and you can show them the numbers. And apparently sometimes numbers don't count.
Well, it's hard no matter when there's a change in structure, there's going to be difficulties.
I just want to add, respond to that, Deneen. I did speak with Wallowa Public, and if we went with the 3.2 option here, I'm not sure that they'd bow out. That's just a $62 increase from what they would pay under the standard fees. So I'm not sure that all of Wallowa County would bow out.
Well, good. That would be nice. My conversation with Debbie was different than that, but if she can figure it out, then good. Because if it's $62, then even the 2% increase or whatever is going to be about that. So, okay, yeah. Good. Well, I'm glad I'm wrong. And
certainly Enterprise and Joseph have significant increases, but again, that part of that increase, a big part of it may be due to interlibrary loan pulling, and if we wait a year, that figure may drastically change if the interlibrary loan ratio is different. But we do use the 3-year average so to provide some stability, so it's not going to change that much, but the trend could improve.
I still agree it's a good plan, and I mean, it makes sense to me, and I think it's equitable. Unfortunately, I don't have the pull that I thought I did to explain it, and part of it is that the city's incurred a lot of extra expense for the library because of the county library closing and our extended hours, etc. And they just suddenly closed the purse, and I don't even know what they're going to do with my part-time person. I don't know why there's a problem. I'm trying to work on it, but it's not looking very good. But that might pass. I don't know, but I'm glad for Debbie. That's good.
I have 2 questions concerning this. So I'm getting the sense, perhaps, I mean, for whatever sense I can get with my little rainbow on my hat here, is that we probably need to bring this to a council, the full membership. When is that meeting? And I don't think we're certainly not going to see 100% attendance. And so I'm curious as to whether that's actually a solution to getting full input, or are we just going to have to do it, say we need a decision from every library and do it as an online vote at some point. Because I can see us moving forward with making a recommendation to the council of this option and this option, so that they're not looking at the whole 9 yards. But I guess my concern is are we going to have a situation where we'll have everybody together, or is it still going to end up being an online vote at some point and we need to get everybody's input? And end of discussion.
I think a vote from every member, I would want to see a yes or no or abstain vote collected on a roll call basis for every member.
Right.
I think that would be a wise thing.
When is that next meeting scheduled, I guess is my next question then.
I typically do the annual meeting in May.
And I think we still have to make provision for online voting for folks, because there's no way, I mean, we haven't gotten 100% participation at the annual meeting ever.
Even with online.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not surprised by that.
I guess.
This is Dia. Oh, go ahead, Beth.
I was just going to say, I think we just need to make provision if they cannot attend in person or attend online, that they send their vote via proxy in email, or somehow cast a vote, yay or nay.
All right, so it sounds like what we need to do is to identify what we want to recommend to them at this meeting. And then that meeting will then address how they will vote and how we will move that forward. And perhaps by May, or if we just, if we decide to move it back some because of everything else that's going on, that may give us a different view to, let's put this off for a year or not. That's certainly a possibility, but I think at this point, let's see if we can say we want to recommend these two things and to bring forward.
I think that's a good plan.
This is Dia. I just want to say I really appreciate all the work, Perry, that you have put into this, and I am in favor of making this shift personally. I actually polled the 23 libraries that are under 5,000, and I got 2 responses. 1 for, 1 against. So at this point, and what I told them is I really want to represent you all in your interests. But I guess in having conversation with Kathleen Schmidtgall, who is also one of the representatives for this grouping, along with Deneen, which I did not speak with personally. Kathleen and I were both saying, as much as we had intended to really try to get into it and digest it all between January and now, kind of got put on the back burner for us. I did spend a fair amount of time yesterday really perusing it, and I think I'm comfortable with it personally. But again, I really don't know what to say representing the folks that I serve. So I guess my personal opinion, and with everything that's going on right now, I think people are so much in a state of flux and unsure about anything because of the current environment with the COVID-19, that I think it might behoove us to just put this off for a year and maybe spend some more time over the next year really working through it with libraries so that they have a real clear understanding of what and why. Not that we couldn't make a decision today in terms of, one of these areas if we choose to pursue a particular one based on the responses or whatever. But I kind of feel like moving forward with anything big change right now might not serve us best.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm in total agreement with that.
Do we want
And
to?
actually, it pains me to say that because I hate to be in that kind of a, but I would really hate for us to have this come back and bite us in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, given the uncertainties, this change, for some it would be a little bit of a benefit, but for some it would be an extra hardship on top of hardship that's already being experienced, and I think right now is not really the right time.
Yeah.
Do we feel comfortable making a motion to postpone this decision for a year?
I would move that.
Make a motion.
I second.
So
Sounds
not
like- Any
not
further- Go ahead, Gary.
sorry, not making a move to change, but is the motion to keep the standard fee schedule with the 2.5% increase?
That would be my motion, yeah. To keep it as such for now and continue to explore this with the libraries, with all the membership.
Got it.
So I heard a motion, I heard a second. Do we have further discussion? Okay, we'll start with a vote. Let's do this. I'm gonna call out the names that I see on the list. Unfortunately, I don't know who everyone is. Beth doesn't have a vote in this situation, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, Perry, your vote.
Aye.
Becky?
Becky's not on the council.
She's not on there anymore. Okay, caller number 1. I have no idea.
That's John, and he's not on the council.
Okay, caller number 2.
That's Becky.
Caller number 3. We still don't know who caller number 3 is. Okay. Dia,
Aye.
is Delia with us still?
She said aye in the chat.
Okay. Enterprise,
Aye.
Kathy. No vote. Kip,
Ryan's actually on the council. I am not.
okay. Myself, I don't vote. Marcia,
Aye.
Mary, Rachel,
She did right. She had to step away.
Ryan.
Aye.
Do we
Oh,
actually?
here's
still have a-
Kathy. I'm back. Were you
we-
talking about me?
Well, we asked you if you had a vote on whether on the motion that's on the table. You need to have that explained?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. My mom called from Florida.
Okay, the motion has been to continue with the standard fee schedule with a 2.5 increase, and then to continue education on what has been done into that, this come up again in the future then, basically. So no change for the coming year.
So just
In
put it off
pricing
for another
structure.
year.
Yes.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, I'm in favor of the change, but unfortunately, it's time to vote aye.
That's fine. Beth, do you know if we still have a quorum? With some of those people ducked out. I'm not sure. I want to make sure we have a quorum on this vote particular.
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay. All right. Well, the ayes have it. And so that's where we're at. Thank you so much, Perry. I appreciate the work you've done. I know that all of us do. And I think the real challenge now is how do we get out and help people feel like they understand what's being proposed. That's going to be another process unto itself. So is there anything else to come before the board at this time then, or the Sage Council, whatever we're calling ourselves, besides a happy St. Patty's Day?
Just one item that occurred to me. Some libraries, given the closures, are devoting more resources into their online catalog, their downloadable resources. Does Sage want to devote any of its contingency money, which we project having $30,000, to the Digital Library Consortium for purchasing? For the library to go. Does that
I
make
was just
sense?
wondering about that today too, Perry. I saw some other bigger library systems have increased their library to go hold ratio numbers and checkout numbers. Like instead of ours are currently 6 for each, now they're saying, they would have, I don't know what theirs were originally, but increasing those numbers, and that would take more money. So, but
how much money is available, Perry?
So after we spend out the $7,000 in severance, we should be left with about $32,000 going into this next year. So there's, unless we have plans for that, Beth, that we need to retain some of it.
There'll be.
I mean, it's
Okay. This is for next year, right? I'm just looking at the fact that there'll be some additional authority expenses because we're starting up with a new authority vendor, but it's not going to be huge numbers. Are you looking at making this change right away to help with closure during the coronavirus? I guess I'm just trying.
That would be.
Figure out if we're trying to benefit our patrons during these hard times as well, and how quick those funds could be used to increase the number of materials available.
Well, I would say we offer Library to Go $10,000, they'd be able to make purchases pretty quick and get that available to Library to Go users.
My only concern is, and this is John, is to make sure we have money set aside for hardware just in case.
Yeah, that's a different line item, John. We have $25,000 set aside for server replacement, any hardware issues that we need to encounter.
I just wanted to make sure that was covered.
This is Dia. My only concern would be that we don't spend down our contingency too far so that we, wipe out anything available next year.
I would agree
but
with you.
I'm not opposed to this at all. I would be in favor of that. I think that's really important.
My concern is that we come up to a balance point so that, because the hardest thing that's happening in this COVID-19 is we don't know what costs this is going to generate. It's not possible for us to know. And so having some funds available, I think, becomes important. So while I like the idea of doing some funds to that, I wouldn't want to expend it all down, because I think there's going to be something happens. We're going to say, because of X, Y, Z, we need to do this.
Would folks be comfortable allocating 15 or 20,000 to more Library to Go titles?
What's our annual that we put to it?
We don't. Sage does not.
Library to Go is a Libraries of Eastern Oregon, so Sage has
Mhm.
never contributed to it.
Right.
So can I ask how much would, say, 10,000 or 15,000? How much more would that purchase titles wise? Because I have no clue. I know that the pricing is all over the place.
And I've not been involved in any purchasing through that, so I don't really have a good way of
Ryan?
estimating it.
Yes.
Ryan, you used to serve on this committee. Do you have any sense of that?
I still am actually.
Okay. So can
Um,
you speak to that?
I was trying to find some of my notes for one of their meetings. I actually do purchasing too for the adult nonfiction audio, and it's like somebody literally just said, the pricing for their materials is literally all over the place. They have audiobooks available that cost $15. They have audiobooks that cost over $100. So that's how wildly it varies on just the section of it that I spend on. I get about $700 a month for my portion.
That's on behalf of Library to Go in general?
Yes. Let me see if I can find meeting stuff for our budget for last year.
I'm not comfortable with as much as 20,000. I think the highest I would want to go would be 15.
I agree with 15.
Yeah, I think 15 would be the highest I'd be comfortable with too.
Well, I think we could make a motion. I can't make the motion, but and then look at how we want to pursue that.
Did you see Kip's question? How about the savings from the conference line?
Well, that's not going to be very much, but
Mhm.
that
Would be
could
about $2,000.
that will add to our residual funds, so we could.
It looks like the total monthly expenditure for normal purchasing, not including the holds alleviation, is around $10,000 for
And
every
is that
type
for
of
audiobooks
material.
only, or for
That's for every type of material they purchase. That's all collections, all material types.
Wow.
And do we have a sense of how many titles that purchases on a monthly basis?
I don't know for mine. Celine's here, actually. I can ask her about what she gets for her part of the budget too. Hold on just a second.
I mean, you guys don't have some sort of reporting as to how many are being purchased every month total with that $10,000?
Rebecca Gabert in Salem is the person who's actually the overall collections person for.
Okay.
For
I was just trying to get a sense of
thing.
how much impact we would have.
I can
Well-
email Rebecca and ask if she has an idea.
I think
And if
Sage
we'd want to
contributing
dedicate it to, yeah,
a month's worth of purchasing is pretty significant.
yeah.
I do too, and it would be
And if you-
wonderful to announce that to our patrons.
Yeah, and if you dedicated it to specific parts of the collection, like if you said we'd like to buy an additional $10,000 of popular fiction for all ages or something like that, rather than spreading it out over everything.
I agree. Yeah.
It's a good way to support the hardship at the time, and it's a way to benefit, since all of the SAGE member libraries, except for the academics, are members of Library to Go through Leo.
And even if it was just alleviating holds, that would make a pretty good difference for the popular fiction holds.
I wonder if we would want to say the number of titles that we estimate it to be rather than putting a dollar figure to it. Only because I think, you know, we can talk about dollars, but I think when we talk about, we've added to our collection of, you know, 1,000 items or 2,000 items. I just think it shows up, I think, I don't know, I like the idea of how many items we've added because of the generosity rather than the dollars spent. We focus on dollars too much sometimes, I think.
Well, I think
But-
when we're announcing it to the patrons, we could focus on the titles, but I think we have to vote on a particular amount to allocate out of contingency.
I would agree.
To and communicate that to the Library to Go folks.
I would make
Overdrive.
a motion that we take 15,000 out of contingency and use it for overdrive materials. Is that how to word it?
Yeah, that works.
But do you want to be more specific about how you're allocating it? Do you want to allocate it towards alleviating holds? Do you want to allocate it to new titles? Do you want to allocate it to specific age ranges or specific, you know, like, do you want it to be adult popular fiction?
Could
have a
we
motion on
allocate
the
it?
table. I'm wondering if we should get a second or not, and then go ahead and modify it and then repropose, or I'm
I'll
procedurally.
withdraw
I'm
my
not sure
motion
this one.
until it's modified.
Okay, let's figure out the motion we're on then.
Ryan, could we allocate it towards buying down the high holds queues?
Yes, that's something you can do. And they have it broken down in terms of the collection development as adult fiction audiobooks, adult fiction ebooks, YA and juvenile audiobooks and ebooks, and you can specify you want to alleviate holds on adult fiction ebooks and audiobooks or whatever, I'm sure. So
When I talk to people, that wait time is the biggest frustration. It's not a frustration with the breadth of the collection. It's just with the wait time.
yeah, and they're spending.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They spend, like, I think last year we spent over $150,000 just to alleviate hold times on the highest demand items. And they're pretty happy if we can keep the hold list under 15, which apparently is pretty close to the national average for this sort of service. So
I have one right now that's 19.
Yeah.
But it went down really fast from when I originally, well, no, when I placed it, it was 20. It's Lady Clementine, and it's brand new. And now it's at 19.
yeah, and they'll probably buy another copy of that to get it under 15.
Oh, is that how that works?
Yep. They pull
Oh,
up those
cool.
lists every so often, and then they buy copies if they're over 15,
Oh,
until the
okay.
average number would be less than 15 holds.
cool.
So
Rachel says she's back in chat. Rachel, we're discussing a proposal to devote $10,000 or $15,000 from our contingency to Library to Go.
Thank you. I support that idea. Thank you.
we're debating right now whether to make it new titles or holds alleviation on current popular titles, and specifically how to do it.
So I don't really have a preference about where it goes, except to reduce the greatest demand in hold queues.
So do we want to make a motion to allocate $15,000?
Okay, I'll make a motion again. I motion that we allocate 15,000 towards overdrive to alleviate hold queues.
Okay. I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none at this time. Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anybody opposed to that motion? Hearing no opposition, we'll make the assumption that that is passed unanimously. And back at our agenda, we have completed everything on our agenda. Is there anything else that we need to or want to discuss at this time? Hearing none, I will wish you all a happy St. Patty's Day. May the road always rise to you, and I don't know the rest of it, so the rest of you that are Irish can enjoy it. Think of
You
your
sounded
own.
so good.
Well, you know, I got a few tricks up my sleeve, but not that many. So now I was going to send everybody a nice sheet that told you how to come up with your Irish name, since many of you don't have one. So, but they were all across the board there. And so there were some that were kind of, well, they were kind of R-rated. And there were others that weren't so bad, but you know, I'll let you do a little look and then find your own and enjoy your own new Irish name. And I think one of mine was Mac. So I thought, you know, I don't have a stutter, so I don't think that's my name, but I'll have to find another one for me. So enjoy your day. Thank you for participating. I hope you all stay well and that when we meet again, we'll all be here and feeling good. So thank you all and adieu.
Thank you, Mark.
I think we can say we close the meeting.
All right.
Good
Thank
job.
you, Mark.